philosophy involves a dialectic for which we use reason to uncover a truth, according to Plato. One of Plato's biggest contributions to philosophy is the idea of forms, or innate truths that transcend the physical world and for which we see all that is good, just, or beautiful. When we look at operating systems, perhaps we can delve into a similar dialectic for what constitutes a good system. The Unix philosophy, invented by one of the creators of Unix, Ken Thompson, seeks to deduce such a form for what Unix programs and systems should be. But before we delve into what exactly this form is, it is important to understand the intentions of its creators. Unix was developed in the 1970s during a time in which systems were becoming actual complexities. As to avoid creating bloated software, the system had to be created in a way that was modular, where tools could be simple, small, robust, and customizable. What also set Unix apart from its competition was the intentional design for longevity. Not only was it written in C, a portable and higher level language compared to assembly, Unix was built on small tools that connect through interfaces such as pipes and streams, which made tasks adaptable to new environments. As such, the Unix philosophy places forth a rule that is necessary to perpetuate its own composition and existence. Each program must do one thing and do it well. This rule is accompanied by two other interlinked rules that make up the vision for Unix. Programs must be written to work together, and these programs must handle text streams because that is a universal interface. So take your most common commands, cd and ls. cd will of course do one thing, navigates in or out of a directory depending on your arguments. ls will do a listing of the contents of a directory. Want to do both? Combine them using and both see the contents and go into the directory. But what practicality does this philosophy have when we use a Unix or Unix-like operating system? So, for example, I use cat. I pipe to grep all the time when I want to find matching substrings for regex within a file, be it with cat or anything else. As such, let's say I pipe to grep when I use cat to filter its output. My intention when using this combination is to see a line or block with this string. I'm certain I've done this countless times because it comes logically and habitually at this point. Yet, it's entirely redundant and excessive when the grep command by itself is capable of providing the same output. Now granted, these programs on their own fully follow the Unix rules and design with a compatibility of combination. Yet here we are violating Rule 1 for this misuse because each of these programs is intended to do one task. And yes, we're needlessly using two programs to accomplish one task, instead of just using one program for one task. So had we adhered to Rule 1, we would have gotten the same results quicker and easier. Now what in GNU/Linux actually adheres to the Unix philosophy as we know it? Well, I'd like to start off with a premise first for what we can use to actually qualify future contestants in the future. So let's return to cat for a second. The most common intention of the cat command is concatenating and reading output files. This is what it does best. However, cat can also be used for writing streams to files straight from standard in. It's clearly able to do two different things, and arguably the writing aspect is its weak point. But as a program, does it bend rule number 1 of the philosophy? I don't think a sound case could be made, and I seldomly hear anyone take issue with it, as it's the key to Unix. Sure, it suits two different tasks, yet it does its primary job very well. Its job is reading and writing streams, simple as. When we read into a file, we read from standard in and redirect the stream through the shell. Now the user has a choice for the direction. So this is of course not even mentioning the fact that the original Unix cat had writing implemented inside of it as well. So I'm not even talking about Stallman's implementation in GNU. I'm talking about the Ken Thompson original Unix implementation. And he's the guy that wrote the philosophy and made the operating system, so I think there's a separation between tasks and jobs altogether. And you'll see this is going to come out to a semantic battle for what exactly the Unix philosophy means by doing one job and doing it well. I'm not going to go through every GNU core utils command because they all clearly follow the Unix philosophy closely, many being open source reworks of existing Unix commands. But the elephant in the room I must address in regards to the GNU project is Emacs. Emacs is a playhouse arcade with every game you could possibly have. I do not think it's a bad program, on the contrary. But it is not the best text editor compared to Vim, and it's not a very good browser or email client either. Which is why I'm pleased that we don't live in a world where Emacs ships as the default text editor. Despite text editing being its main intention, it's still attempting to do several different jobs. And while it's a very intriguing and innovative piece of software for those that might enjoy living inside of it, I think because of how far it strays from the Unix philosophy, its functionality is out of place, and this is why it's so outdated in 2025. The point I'm trying to make is that Emacs does not hold up to its alternatives, which follow the Unix philosophy much closer. However, one of the most controversial aspects of modern GNU Linux is systemd, which is a process management system that a lot of distros such as Arch use out of the gate. A successor to init, it allows you to initialize processes on startup as well as start and stop daemons. In terms of adhering to the Unix philosophy, systemd is a gray zone because it is undoubtedly large and uses a lot of processing power. And while it's often called bloat, I think this accusation is largely an over-exaggeration, given how it produces speedier boot times than any of its competition. Now, as for whether it adheres to the philosophy itself, does it do one thing and do it well? Systemd does its job well, which is managing processes to initialize at boot. However, it also comes with a logging daemon, utilities to control system configuration like the host name, dates, logs in users, running containers and virtual machines, system accounts, runtime directories and settings, and daemons to manage simple network configuration, network time synchronization, log forwarding, and name resolution. Despite this, it's important to point out that systemd is composed of many different and separate binaries. You have systemd, systemd journal, systemd login, systemd resolved, systemd networkd, systemctl, journalctl, all of which have their own responsibilities and communicate through IPC or pipes and sockets. This makes systemd modular. Whether systemd is close to the Unix philosophy will depend on your interpretation of the do one thing well statement. Does doing one thing well mean to only do one thing ever and forever? Relating back to the premise I put out earlier, even the most core Unix programs can do more than one thing. Yes, systemd is very large, but it is a lot more modular than is insinuated, and does its job well enough for me not to have any issues with it. While I'd like to talk more about systemd and its alternatives in the future, I admittedly have not experienced any alternative thus far. So when I give Void or BSD a try, I'll get back to you. But before I get into my conclusion about what the Unix philosophy really entails and how to best judge whether something fits the Unix philosophy and what the Unix philosophy should mean to you as a whole, I'm going to go into some GUI stuff for a second. So, for anyone that might have not realized this yet, this philosophy was mainly written with the consideration of programs running for CLI. However, I would argue that even modern GUI components such as desktop environments do not diverge strongly from the core principles. GNOME and DEs such as i3 or DWM all consist of several replaceable and customizable components, all of which will work together but serve different purposes. Say we take i3. The program does one thing well, which is display windows. It does not also try to be a file manager, and it's modular using dmenu or raw5 for program searches, or a menu, and allowing you to set the terminal emulator of your choice. You can also use scripting to make i3 work and call other programs as well. Furthermore, i3 blocks and i3 status use standard output. But back to Unix philosophy, why does all of this matter? Why does it matter if a program fits the Unix philosophy or not, if it's good, if a program is usable? It all comes down to the true form of Unix. How was it designed, and how is it meant to be operated? And all of that is apparent through observing the actions and works of the Unix founders. Unix is modular and minimalist, and as such, only programs that are as minimalist and modular as possible will work well on Unix. If a program is complicated or becomes outdated, it's clear that it's strayed pretty far away from the Unix philosophy. And as such, it will not be as effective as its more pure alternatives. And yes, Linux is not Unix, but it is a wonder and a miracle that we have such a true form to base our operating system on, to make sure that it is good and functional.